Good business. You know, I'm offering my brethren in South Africa the Quran, this Quran here, 1,920 pages. I said 10 rands each, that's $5. And if you can't afford it, free. Free. Anybody, Muslim or non-Muslim, you just have to tell me, say, look man, I'm getting 1,000 dirhams a month, but you know, I got wife and children and I can't afford it. If you were in my country, I'd give you free. Here, I have to send it by air. It's going to cost me 30 rands just to send the Quran to you, by air. Therefore, I can't afford it. But if it was female, I could have done it. Even you. What we are selling, you know, this 1,920 pages for $5, he wants that Bible 25 and a special one 50. And he advertises King James Version. This is the authorized King James Version. And he loves it. And I also love it. You see, the language is beautiful. The language of the King James Version is class, top literature in English. Let me read to you that the revisers in 1952, the revisers of the Revised Standard Version, what they say about the one that Jimmy Swaggart uses and the bulk of Christendom uses. They all use this one which is called the King James Version or the authorized version, authorized by, not God, by King James. He authorized, not Allah. King James authorized. So, the authority for this now, the people who opt for this, you know, who started this, let me just give you a few testimonies that people have, tributes that people have paid to this book. The Revised Standard Version. Church of England newspaper says, the finest version which has been produced in the present century, this one, is the finest version produced in the present century. Times Literary Supplement says, a completely fresh translation by scholars of the highest eminence. It says further, language which is not only dignified but also contemporary. It says further, fullest use of the resources of modern scholarship goes into this. Life and Work, another magazine says, the well-loved characteristics of the authorized version combined with a new accuracy of translation. And the Times, you know, the newspaper in England says, the most accurate and close rendering of the original. This one here is the Revised Standard Version, RSV for short. Now, they pay tribute to the one that Jimmy Swaggart carries and the bulk of Christendom uses. Almost any Christian you come across, he'll be carrying that one, not this. Though this is the most up-to-date. This claims to go to the most ancient manuscript. The other two, the Roman Catholic and the King James Version, goes to the ancient manuscripts. Ancient means 500 to 600 years after Jesus. Most ancients mean 200 to 300 years after Jesus. So closer to the source, the more authentic anything would be. Closer to the source. If Jesus Christ left something with us in his own handwriting, no problem whatsoever. Unfortunately, he didn't leave a word. He didn't ask anybody to write a word in his lifetime, and not a word was written in his lifetime. So now these, authors of these, 32 scholars of the highest eminence, backed by 50 cooperating denominations, they say, they pay tribute to the other one now. The one that Jimmy Swaggart uses. It says here, the King James Version has with good reason been termed the noblest monument of English prose. Noblest monument of English prose. Its revisers in 1881 expressed admiration for its simplicity, its dignity, its power, its happy turns of expression, the music of its cadences, and the felicities of its rhythm. It has entered as no other book has into the making of the personal character and the public institutions of the English-speaking people. We owe to it an incalculable debt to that book. The English-speaking peoples, Britain and America, and wherever people speak English, and use English as their language for reading the Bible, it says we owe to it, to that book, an incalculable debt. The tribute that is paid, I'm challenging people, Muslims, can you pay a better tribute to the Quran than this? If this was written by somebody praising the Quran, I said this is topmost testament. But now, this is what they say about the King James Version. And now prepare for the shock. Prepare for the shock from these same people who are taking this book up to the heavens. Listen to them, what they have to say. It says, yet the King James Version has grave defects. That book. I don't know whether they understand English, these English-speaking people. They say, yet the King James Version, I'm not saying that. 32 scholars of the highest eminence, backed by 50 cooperating denominations, they say, yet the King James Version has grave defects. By the middle of the 19th century, the development of biblical studies and the discovery of many manuscripts more ancient than those upon which the King James Version was based made it manifest that these defects are so many and so serious as to call for revision. So they revised it. They are so many and so serious, not ordinary fiddly-biddly things. They are so serious that it has to call for revision. So they revised it. 1952. So this is the most up-to-date, the most accurate, going back to the most ancient manuscripts. This is the book, but they don't use it. They were using it. And I'll tell you, if I have the chance, why they stopped using it. I'll tell you. So now it has grave defects. Your learned men are telling us. What do we know about Bibles? And these are Christian scholars of the highest eminence. Not Muslim scholars or Jewish scholars or Hindu scholars or atheistic scholars. Christian scholars of the highest eminence. They are telling you the grave defects. And they show us what those defects are. But it doesn't suit Jimmy Swaggart. So he uses the other one with the defects. So in one of his books, he calls it the cults. These are just a few pages. The book is thicker than that. The cults. He's talking about the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Seventh-day Adventists. They are all the sects and denominations of Christianity. He calls them cults. Among the cults now, in that book, he speaks about a verse, and which every Christian missionary, worth his salt, he can't help quoting. It's John, that means the book of John. There are certain books in the New Testament. It's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. John chapter 3, verse 16, where it says, for God so loved the world that he sacrificed his only begotten son, ek hi jana hua beta, his only begotten son. So the Muslims have been at cross purposes with the Christians on this term, word begotten. Because we are told, lam yalid wa lam yulad. Allah says, he does not beget and is not begotten. And this is something very much stronger than that. In Surah Maryam, he says, وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَلَدًا. And they say that Ar-Rahman, the merciful God, has begotten a son. Allah reacts to such a statement. Because begetting a son, it attributes to Allah an animal nature. The lower animal functions are sex. Allah begot a son. So Allah says, لَقَدْ جِئْتُمْ شَيْئًا عِدًّا. It's one of the most abominable assertion one can make. The worst thing you can say about Allah, the worst swearing you can swear Allah is this. To say that Allah begot a son. تَكَادُ السَّمَاوَاتُ يَتَفَطَّرْنَ مِنْهُ. As if the skies are ready to burst. وَتَنْشَقَّ الْأَرْضُ. And the earth to split asunder. وَتَخِرُّ الْجِبَالُ حَدًّا. And the mountains to fall down in utter ruin. أَنْدَعُوا لِلرَّحْمَنِ وَلَدًا. That they should say that Ar-Rahman, the merciful God, has begotten a son. We didn't protest. Allah is crying. Astaghfirullah for using such language, but he's crying. If it was a human being doing that, telling you, they are swearing me like this. Oh, the worst swearing they can give me. As if he's crying to you. So look, they are swearing me. What happens to the Muslim? Nothing. The Indian Muslims, I can't blame him. The Bengali Muslims, I can't blame him. The poor man, the African Muslims, I can't blame him. They read the Quran, we read the Quran, I read the Quran. But without understanding, for sawab, Allah will give you sawab. Will give you sawab. But the Arab,